Hi, welcome to the Wisdom Years. I'm Wayne Morrison. This is part 2 of an NDE experience I had when I was 17 years old. And if you haven't seen part 1, I would recommend going back and watching that. There are also videos on the internet that you can watch that explain more than I'm going to put forth in this video. Where I had left off with in part 1 was I was in the presence of a being of the highest order. This being wrapped me in unconditional love. It was a feeling so comforting and so warm that it is not describable, literally can't be described. I felt like I was home. I felt like I was loved purely and unconditionally for the first time in my life. No boundaries. And I had so many questions that kept coming out of my mind and were answered in rapid fire. And by rapid fire, I mean before I could even conceptualize my thought, I understood what it was I was trying to ask. And it was given to me in so many ways that I was knowledgeable on a level that isn't possible here on Earth. The biggest question I had, and I asked it, or in my own mental telepathy or whatever you want to refer to it as, I said, what is the secret meaning of life? And this being smiled. And I say smiled, but I need to articulate this. The being was a being of light with a fairly vague face. I could not make out the features, but the being struck me as masculine. And by the way, I wasn't raised in a religion, so I was totally non-religious. I'm not anti-religious, but I never was raised in a religion, so I had no preconcepts of what to expect. And when this being answered my question about the meaning of life, it was so simple and yet radiant and complete that it amazed me. It was love. I'm sorry I can't give a more complicated answer, but it wasn't the word L-O-V-E. It wasn't love as we know it with all of its baggage here on Earth. It's a love that was so complete and covered the entire world and all creation, including the being talking to me, that my soul, my spirit, in front of this being started to do somersaults in the air in joy. And I remember the being looking at me and feeling the same joy I was, almost chuckling as if I was a little child. And I said, really, is that all? That's it? But at the same time, I understood. It was really that simple and yet so misunderstood for the 17 years I had previously lived. So after a number of questions were answered, I was brought to a place in space that appeared to be, if you could picture a giant Greek amphitheater, but in space, in darkness, and in front of me, Earth appeared, the world itself. Thank you. Please join me for part 3 and I'll conclude this series.